Welcome, everyone. My name is Laura Daly, and I'm co-chair of the Dance Committee. We thank you for joining us for today's NAC Home program, Leaping into the Unknown, the Future of Dance. For those of you not familiar with the National Arts Club, we are a 501c3 nonprofit based in New York City. Our mission is to stimulate, foster, and promote public interest in the arts. To that end, the club offers more than 150 free programs annually to the public. These programs include exhibitions, theatrical, musical, and dance performances, lectures, and readings. For more information about the club, we invite you to visit us at nationalartsclub.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. There will be a Q&A session after this presentation, so I encourage all of you to use the Q&A function for any questions you may have for our presenters. Tonight's program is being recorded and will become available tomorrow on our YouTube channel. Now, I would like to introduce my fellow Dance Committee co-chair, Dawn Lilly, who will give you some background on our presenters.
I remember seeing Deirdre Towers after a screening at the Dance on Camera Festival, which she co-produced with Lincoln Center for 18 years. She was wearing a flamenco dress and was soaring from guest to guest. So I was not surprised when she titled tonight's program, A Leap into the Future. A dancer, choreographer, writer, and filmmaker, Deirdre began her career in dance films while on the staff of Dance magazine when she was asked to write a column on the subject. She created flamenco solos for her partnership with guitarist-composer Paul Jared Newman, as well as for other companies and people. Her documentary, La Chana, about an almost forgotten flamenco star, won 14 awards, including the Grand Prix in Montreal, and was screened at NAC. It is a pleasure to present Deirdre and two of her guests, Anne-Marie D'Angelo and Joanna Sherman. Deirdre?
It's such an honor to be hosted by the National Arts Club. And I would like to bow to the Lenape Indians who once lived in Manhattan, and to Paul Jared Newman, who has asked you to start my video. I lost myself. Am I back? So I was just making a bow to my partner, Paul Jared Newman, who left last June, and I wouldn't be here without him. So our subject, leaping into the unknown. Is that a good idea to just leap blindly? Maybe we should have a plan, some kind of paradigm to work with. What kind of paradigm? Well, why not a spiral? We're done with rectangles, aren't we? Unless, of course, they're twisted into Mobius strips. I'm suggesting that we are ready to operate within a new paradigm, one that challenges, clashes with the old to move us forward. This last year, there's been rampant anxiety, despair, and panic. And what do we do when we panic? We freeze until a little voice within says, don't just sit there, do something. Bottom line, we need change. To change, we need to move. And who understands motion best, intuitively and scientifically? Dancers. We dancers grapple with space, time, and energy. And dancers can lead by doing what we do best, move with electricity, grace, and ingenuity. So I'd like you to consider the idea of dance and spirals as a metaphor, as an ideal form designed for growth, a catalyst to goad us to be fully awake, alive, and in tune again. Thinking out of the box, an expression inspired by John Adair's 9-dot puzzle is 50 years old already. We need something fresh to pop the boil of our narcissistic abuse of the planet and each other. Spirals are everywhere in nature: sunflowers, galaxies, algae, fingerprints. If we spend more time out in the wild, we might shed our reptilian ways and evolve. This mystique of spirals is old news, of course, 2,321 years, more or less. In the 3rd century BC, Greek mathematician Archimedes explained them. In 1914, T.A. Cook wrote a book titled The Curves of Life, an account of spiral formations and their application to growth in nature, science, and art. Mae West, that wonderful siren comedian, said with a little bounce, "Curve, the loveliest thing between 2 points. Cultivate your curves. They may be dangerous, but they won't be avoided." Martha Graham and Lester Horton, who studied the undulation of snakes, wove spirals into their dance technique. Sufis, with their right arm up to God and their left pointing to earth, spin counterclockwise to spiral into their subconscious. But all these arts presenters fretting over the unknowns of the future of dance may need to spend some more time meditating on spirals. COVID forced even the most film-phobic artists and administrators to stream works shot on stage, in bedrooms, and on rooftops. Then the protests over racism and police violence broke out. Martha Graham Dance Company's artistic director, Janet Elber, said, "This past year required us to embrace, if not celebrate, uncertainty and change. Our physical survival has depended on distancing, but our artistic and spiritual survival depend on discovering new ways to connect. We are being forced to rethink what and how we communicate to whom and to what end. In all this turmoil, how fares the audience? Do they want to cross between entertainment, shock therapy, and a spa, a fix to chase away stress and blues? Do they just want to hug their friends and enjoy a slow dance?" So now I'm working up to inviting my first guest, my old friend. I shouldn't say old friend of many years. Art and politics. Can these two intersect to propel us to a better life? Joanna Sherman from Bond Street Theater, which she founded in 1976, she can attest, after working for the benefit of women, children, and others in over 40 countries, peace building in post-war and disadvantaged communities. She is a brave, bold leader who uses creativity to bring about change. Welcome, Joanna Sherman.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deirdre. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me to this auspicious occasion. I love the painting behind you. It's very beautiful. So, we've had a great long history of using theater for social justice. And I'll try to just make a couple of points about how it is that we do this and why and how it works out, because we're all about the impact that we're making. We select the places where we think we're going to make the most impact. And theater's been used for social justice as a mouthpiece for social justice for many years. And we went into this very naively, and then we just learned so much over the last 35 years. I know, right? Time just flies when you're having fun. But, people do ask, why theater? Because, we're going into these disaster zones and refugee areas and, places that have really just come out of a war situation like Afghanistan, Myanmar, working with Rohingya refugees in Malaysia, all these very difficult situations. And people say, well, why theater? You're going into a refugee camp. Why? Because they imagine a stage and lights. And someone even asked me, how much do you charge for a ticket for the refugees? And I just had to say, we just pull up a piece of dirt. That's our stage. And, I wish I could show you photos because I have many of just pulling up an area and that's our stage. And we've trained people over many years. And, I don't like to use the word empower. It's like, it's not that we are giving the power. People have the power. And we just open the door to let them express their power that they all have. And in some of these places, really, that's all they need is a little push to express what's on their mind. So when we go into an area, it's most important that we listen to see what they want to talk about. We're not coming in and saying, okay, today, we're going to talk about, it's what do you need? What do you want to talk about? What do you have to get off your chest? And it's a really enlightening situation. So we're just helping them speak out, just have those tools. And I'll give you a good example. When we started working in Afghanistan, which was right after 9/11, we found Afghanistan that was hardly stone for stone. I mean, really, it was just rubble from end to end. And then within the year, we found out they wanted to have a theater festival at the university, which was half destroyed. The Kabul University was like half gone, but we worked in and we lived in the half that was still existed. And they said, well, we want to have a theater festival. And I said, well, how can you have a theater festival? People have not seen theater, let alone done theater for 20 years. All those years of war and the Taliban forbidding music, dance, art, theater, everything. How are you going to do this? But it turns out that all these theater companies were springing up around the country. They had absolutely no training. They just wanted to tell their story. And they got these 50 companies from all over the country to come and do their shows. And I mean, it was like sort of third grade level theater. They were all stepping all over each other. And I mean, it was sort of chaos. But that inspired us to let's give them some skills here. Let's just help them out. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we created 4 all women's theater companies, because we noticed that in all these theater groups, there were no women. The men were playing the parts of the women. You throw on a burqa, you're a woman. Even if you're, walking like a linebacker, you're a woman. So, and it involved like a lot of weeping. And I said, no, if you're going to play a woman, this is how you do it. So you had to teach body language to the men. But the women, theater's not rocket science. They picked it up very quickly. Storytelling is really intrinsic to human nature. And I think that finding all these theater groups springing up all over the country prove that. People want to tell their story. And of the 50 shows in the festival, which they did indeed have in 2003, right after the war, of the 50 shows, 49 of them were about the war. That's how important it was for people to tell their story. And I often say, when I'm trying to promote the idea when I go lobby in Washington for theater, that theater is conflict resolution. Because they say, what does theater have to do with conflict resolution? But what story, what play, what book have you ever read that is not about a conflict and how people resolved it? That's why we see Batman. How is he going to get out of trouble? I mean, this theater is indeed conflict resolution. So this has been kind of our motto through the years. And theater training, besides being conflict resolution, it's also just good training for being able to be a lawyer, a politician, how to speak out, how to stand up for yourself, how to speak out on your own behalf. So it's body training, how to stand up, speak out, use your voice, not be like putting your face, covering your face. This is a big challenge with the girls, of course, because they're trained from the time they're little not to look at people directly. You keep your eyes down. You're keeping a very humble attitude. So to get them to keep their chin up, look straight out, and speak their mind was very, it was challenging, but they absolutely got it. And in the end, they wrote their own play and performed it. And I got to tell you, the first time they got in front of like a huge group of women, because it was just women performing for other women, that's how we got permission to do this. Once they see that they're making an impact on the women in the audience, they came to me afterwards and they said, Joanna, they were all listening to me. And I said, well, of course they were listening to you. You were saying something really important. It's important. And then the next time, they're better actors. And by the third show, they're really getting good actors. And by the 10th show, they don't want to get off the stage. And if all of them will not become actors in the future, it's very dangerous in Afghanistan to be an actor, in fact. But I think that they will be forever changed. Because to know that what you say is important, that you have something important to say, and to see that it's making a very direct impact is huge. So this is just one example in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is going through tremendous upheaval right now, which is making me very sad. And I can just hope for the best. There's been such progress over the last 20 years that we have seen, that we've been part of, but many, many other groups have been part of. I'm hoping that the intensity of the youth today that have been trained, that do know how to speak out for themselves, will not let this regression happen. The women are mighty and awesome and brave, and I don't think that they're going to just let them be pushed around. I really am hoping not. So, and then looking at Myanmar, which is another place that we're very
Maybe let's not go to Myanmar because I think this is
yeah, okay.
I think this is a lot to digest. But I mean, it's to take full cycle what you said. People need to be heard, and in this year when everybody's been isolated all over the globe, it's one thing to be heard, but how many people are good listeners? I mean, I think all of us who are working in the arts, you're trying to communicate, you're trying to collaborate, and the importance to hear what people have to say and you know, give them space. And I think I would just ask you one other thing on theater versus dance. Of course, we've had a lot of theater dance. We've had and now as we're going into an era where maybe the entire world will be on internet, so that we could potentially collaborate, whether you're a dancer, musician, storyteller, with people all over the world. Tell the audience a little bit about your circus arts, because you didn't mention that, and of course that's one of my lead-ins of the stilt dancing and how people respond to you before anybody said a word.
Yeah, well, I think the important thing here is not so much circus arts, as that's just one of many physical, many things in our physical vocabulary. So our physical vocabulary includes dance, it includes all different kinds of movement, mime, circus arts of various types. You know, basically we're looking for like, how do we express ourselves that we're going to be able to reach people? So sometimes we can't use words, but you can do a lot without words. And whether it's not even necessarily dance, but many of our shows have not had any language at all, and they're perfectly understandable. We did a nonverbal version of Romeo and Juliet all over Bosnia, Serbia, Macedonia, Bulgaria, all over the Balkan regions. And in collaboration with the theater company there, a Bulgarian theater company, and had not a word to it, but you know, people understood it perfectly.
Right.
There's a lot you can say without language. So having this extensive physical vocabulary is, as you say, super important.
Thank you, Joanna. Amazing story. I have to zoom along to give a little intro to our other guest, whom I met decades ago, Anne-Marie D'Angelo, another artistic leader, a one-time star with the Joffrey Ballet, followed her hunch way back when about mixing styles. She salt and peppered her productions with dancers trained on the streets with those who grew up at the bar. 40 years after she started doing this in Havana, transcultural cross-fertilization is omnipresent. So let's welcome Anne-Marie.
I just unmuted myself. Okay.
Okay. So in this wild open subject of where do we go from here? We've just had crazy productions in Afghanistan. And if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere, one would think.
I guess I just want to say thank you for having me be a part of this. I appreciate it. I you know, as a glass half full person, not a glass half empty person, I have to say that this period of time has not frightened me at all in any way whatsoever, because if you look at every historic turn of the century, they're always the same. They're chaotic. I look at the turn of the century, you know, the 20s. In my field, my narrow field of ballet, Fokine, Diaghilev and Fokine, they really recreated a new format of how to view dance, which is Fokine had the small ballets, 20, 25-minute ballets. So you had ballet, intermission, ballet, and that's how for the rest of the 19th century, 20th century, you know, we've seen dance. And so they moved out of the 4-hour Swan Lake Classic into these shorter evenings. So the format was changed at that time. Balanchine, you know, he probably, you know, last century was about deconstructionism. Now it's about unity. How do we bring people together? You look at Balanchine, perhaps in the beginning of that, took costumes, those romantic costumes, off of his dancers, and it was very controversial to have leotard and tights. And by the way, his first ballet, Le Cotillon, that we did in the Joffrey, was very romantic. It did not look like a Balanchine ballet at all. Very different. So, you know, if you look at the different times, you look at a concept called creative destruction, where the light bulb replaces the candle, and the car replaces the bicycle, and the train replaces the car, the airplane comes in. That we're just really, it's a dawning of a new time that should not frighten people. It's just that we've got the internet, which is something we've never had before. But so there's, you know, industrial age, people didn't have things either. So that should not be frightening. I have to say, before I get into just quickly about what I do, which is bringing worlds together through dance, and what that actually means, is we're in a time, we're moving out of a time of crisis. And crisis in Chinese means danger and opportunity. The danger, of course, is that we don't survive. And opportunity is only realized when the old order completely dies in chaos. So what does that mean? It means whether it's a belief system, the way we're doing things, the way we perceive things, everything that we're used to. Once the old ideas completely dissolve, the new is free to be born. I think that's where we are, and that should be really an exciting time for people. Why not? You know, that's my perspective. Bringing worlds together through dance. So whether it's stylistically with styles, or whether it's cultures that I've brought together, I work with essence. And so essence is a quality that the ancient Mayan Indians had. And I think I told you this to you before, was when they greet someone, they don't say hello. Their hello is, I'm another yourself. I see you and I see me and you. So they see essence. They see through the individual. And when you work with essence like I do, you do not see color or form. You see that unique character, you see that human being. And so early in the 80s, I was mixing, I don't like to say styles, I was mixing unique individuals. So I would have a street dancer from the ghetto who we had to educate about how to come on and off stage, or figure out how to even create with them, with a ballet dancer, with a gymnast, with a modern dancer, with a singer, with a baton twirler. So I would mix, you could say I was mixing styles, but I was bringing people together. and creating, from my perspective, a new format that I thought would be more entertaining and accessible to the audience than the rigid ballet format that I grew up in. And so that had always been my goal, how to excite an audience. And I found 70-minute shows. We premiered my first company, Alicia Alonso, who was a mentor. I met her at a ballet competition in Varna. The company started in Cuba. And from there, interesting, hugely popular in Europe, hugely popular in South America and other places in the world, not popular in the United States 30 years ago. Now it's popular. Very interesting to me. Now it's popular. So bringing cultures together. When I worked in Mexico, I started that Ballet de Monterrey, a company. And because of my relationship with Alicia Alonso, I had the idea, which is odd, of bringing Cuban dancers together with Mexican dancers, with American dancers. And that actually created the foundation, which today it's 30 years old, the foundation for the company. And it was a strong root, the tree is still there. It was this really very strong root. And working culturally in that way, for some, it freed people up to not have a competitive atmosphere, but what was created and what was produced was very fresh. Because of our differences, we found what was the same, our sameness. And I believe we are in that time now. And we're going about it in a number of different kinds of ways, but essentially it's like, I am another yourself. It's like we need to see beyond the surface and in a way grasp the idea. And by the way, the G symbol for the Mayans is the symbol of the serpent, which is the symbol of the spiral, which is the archetype of the new time. And in the new time, women, and by women, I mean the feminine, and the women literally have it more than men. So the feminine brings in the new time. And what is the feminine? The feminine is our intuition. So if we can move forward into the future more intuitively, perhaps we lead into the future that way and not try to think it too hard and try to already make something happen that perhaps it's not right to happen because it doesn't have that fresh new spirit, that fresh new energy, that fresh new spiral.
Bravo. Thank you.
Did that answer any question of the future?
Absolutely. Well, I find it very entertaining for sure. And I'm using Essence as a springboard to talk about my project for a little bit because you and Joanna, I think, are fascinating and approaching. In some ways, I think that would be a cool collaboration to have the two of you work together. But using your talk about Essence, I didn't grow up in a ballet studio. I grew up in the woods. I grew up in the water. Then I came to New York and I fell in love with dance and theater and everything. And then when my parents died, I found all I wanted to do was stare at water. And since I'd been involved with the Dance on Camera Festival for really 30 years, I ran the festival for 18. So I had a very open view of what is dance and what way to make films. So probably for myself, if nothing else, I got involved with filming dance, filming the sea rather, as a dancer. And thinking, well, if it worked for me, it'll work for others, because I can't think of anything more trance-inducing than watching the water. So I did an installation and I projected on sails. I made a labyrinth. And Joanna actually came out to see it. That was nice. And but moving forward, I realized that not everybody is as waterlogged as I am. Some people are more into fire, earth, air, and so I worked on a new version that I was thinking it would be really nice to have a higher ceiling, because where I had been before, the ceilings were really low. It was a waterfront museum on a barge, so it had a low ceiling. And I started to crave an open space. And because I was dealing with our essence, the four elements, one thing led to another, and I was working with Mara Aceves, a Mexican designer, and Nan Melville, and we were thinking about staircases and double helixes, and wouldn't it be nice to experience the spiral? And suddenly we discovered that there are 2,000 fire towers scattered across the country, and whether we do it or not is still to be seen. But it made me realize that as deeply involved with dance and film and music, I love to play the piano, but I'm a nature girl, and every wildlife lover is as fretful as the arts presenters, wondering what's going to happen with the demise of species every day and climate change. And so I'm proposing to the audience out there that it's a great time for arts presenters and nature conservators to entice audiences outside to experience both nature and art. And as I said before, that there are spirals everywhere in nature. So if you're out in nature, you're absorbing the miracle of growth, really. So so as we were progressing with the installation and stuck at home, doing lots of dreaming, I had switched from just the focus on physical waves of the sea to emotional waves, trying to understand the rhythms and patterns, and everybody has their own emotional rhythms, which led me to think how to make the Bell 8 installation not only COVID correct, meaning you'd only have one person at a time going through this installation, but how could you make the viewer feel like they are the conductor of this experience? And then I recalled the Troika Ranch had developed a program way back in the 80s is it 80s or 90s? When I was working with Dance Films Association, and I looked them up to see if in fact there was someone I could work with to know what could the Isadora software make possible. Could the viewer be the conductor of his experience? And every day that I had the installation at the Waterfront Museum, I'd go to see how were people experiencing. And I found it was just like going into a museum. You know, you say, oh, Rodin, Rombe, and you just like 10 seconds. So you wonder how to extend that experience, or how to make it more attuned to that viewer, so that maybe they would get intrigued and it's not just a passive experience. So at this point, I would like to introduce Armando Menicaci, who I have not met in the flesh. We thought we were going to meet last August, and of course the borders have been closed, but I was so intrigued to connect with you because your connection as a dancer, then becoming a pianist, a composer, moving back to the software, and then you seem to have mastered so much of the technology. So obviously we can't explain everything, and there may be lots of the audience who knows all about Isadora software, and this is probably only one of many you work with, right, Armando?
Thank you. Do you hear me well? It's
Yes.
okay, the sound? Okay.
Yeah.
Because my microphone, okay. Hello, I'm sorry I was a bit late. I have a bit of I had a tooth operation, so it's a little bit complicated, but
Thank you for coming.
thank you for having me. I'm sorry I'm not in full shape yet, but I hope to give you some hints on Isadora and a little bit of my experience on how software can change dance. I have a master degree in musicology and a PhD in dance and new media at the Paris 8 University, and I've been hired by UQAM, Université du Québec à Montréal, here in Montreal, where I live. And I set up a lab dedicated to dance and technology and science for also health, in the sense that we are producing experimental choreographical works enhanced by technology, and at the same time we use medical sensors to understand and analyze the experience of the spectators and of the performance in real time at the same time. I've had that $355,000 from the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, and I have been using my experience in dance technology to go in the direction of creating experimental work that change a little bit life. That is why I called my lab La Vie. La Vie in French means life, the life, but La Vie means Laboratoire Art Vivant Interdisciplinaire. So we're working together. I can show you very briefly what it is about. And I'll share my screen. I think I can do it. Yes. Very briefly, this is my website. In project, you have La Vie. And you can see this incredible space. Actually, it is a 250-seat theater. You can see the size of the screens. This is 6.5 meters by 11, so seats can be hidden and shown. And I've made a custom built rail system, so I can take out any. It can become a cinema, a white box, triple, quadruple, and a black box, and all the in-betweens. Everything is controlled by a central server run by Isadora, and I bought scientific software and scientific sensors in order to build this analysis of the experience of the users. Why Isadora? Isadora is you probably know, it's a very simple software that allows us to control everything in a theater: lights, sound, images. We can have 4 cameras in each computer and 6 4K outputs, and everything works right out of the box like a Lego. It means that Isadora is, I can show you for people who might not know it. It is, and let me share again now that I have launched software. It will be very short, but okay. Isadora works like a Lego in the sense that you put actors, these little tiny boxes, for instance, and this for instance, this one is a contrast adjust. So I just connect a camera. I connect the camera to the projector, and I can adjust in real time, even using my voice as my level of my voice, anything. So I can move an image, I can interact with an image, or with sound, or with lights, or with a mechanical engine that makes a piano fly on the stage. So it is very simple, and the idea, as Deirdre said, is that yeah, I came back from sharing, is that we want technology can empower people instead of taking from them. So it is a software. Isadora is a software taking energy from them, in the sense that Isadora is a software thought by an artist for artists, and not by a programmer for programmers. That's the real thing. So I've been teaching Isadora since the version, it was even not the version 1.0, it was version 0.7, because Marco Niglio is a very old friend of mine, and he sent me the software one night and he said, hey, you should sell it. He said, you think I could sell it? Because he programmed it for himself, for his dance company, the Troika Ranch Dance Company. That is why the company that does Isadora is called Troikatronics, because it's it's a spin-off of Troika Ranch. Mark is a composer, studied with Morton Subotnick, one of the greatest electronic music composers, very famous US composer, and he also studied C++ with a Jesuit priest. So he studied at the Jesuit school how to program, and has been always very creative. And his thing is to help artists and make a software that's less expensive possible, and software that can empower people through interactivity. I can announce here, because it's official, Isadora will also in a month do streaming of shows. So you can arrange your media, you can project your media on the stage, you can film with the camera and do the streaming live on the internet directly from Isadora without the use of OBS or other streaming software. So it is a very... Go on.
I was just going to say, all of my panelists are so fascinating, but unfortunately we have a short amount of time. So I think this is like a little teaser.
Glimpse.
Yes, that is, there's so much possible. And even though the Isadora is 30 years old, that it keeps getting refined and gets simpler to use. And there aren't that many people who are as adept as you are. But I just want to move on because I did promise to show some films, and time is zooming along. I do want to say to my audience that in preparation for this, I did write an article, which you can find on medium.com. It's called Why a Spiral? And before we show the films, I just want to conclude by saying that, first of all, I was saying we should look to nature for anyone who's stuck, not sure where to go from here. So I say meditate on spirals, and to think video first before you plan your next performance, because the reality is now we know that that the way we survive as a dance community is to follow the example of the music industry, which 100 years ago embraced technology, but dance and theater have not embraced. They were always true to the live show. And as I say, I believe you should go into nature. We should bring dance back to its origins, and the rituals and the chances to listen to your collaborators and bring those stories alive. And as far as I'm concerned, everybody should dance all the time. So I ask everybody to dance with whoever's around you, no matter their age or ability. So, and Nadine, I don't know if this is possible, but since we're running out of time, could you fast forward the videos I have so that we're not just seeing the first one? Could you just fast forward it like 4 minutes? And so these are, yeah, let's just jump in right there. That's fine. And we'll be back for Q&A. So that's just a tease of what amounts to 2 hours of films on water above and below the surface. And now we're going into another short that I did that is more the playing off emotional waves. So,
Okay, so I'm back.
okay. So we have,
Is everybody there? Because I have questions for everyone. How about that? I will say though, those videos were terrific. Straps, was very Momix, if anybody knows Moses Pendleton. They first started to use that concept, I believe, in 1980 when he and Cynthia created White Widow. And it's been I'm short of calling it a prop, it's something that it's in almost every one of their shows. And being a former manager of the company, I know what I'm talking about. So Deirdre, for the first two videos with the dancers, the one that had the couple and then Streb. So was that did you superimpose certain things over the choreography, or was that something that Streb all just put together herself? And what about the other one with the two dancers? Can you just?
yeah, Streb was done inside, and yes, I did the Streb video actually when we were all on tenterhooks, whether we were going to say goodbye to Mr. Trump. And so, so fireworks and celebration and taking risks and again, leaping into the unknown. And so that's, yeah, I was just combining them. She the dancers, she has them leap onto a mattress.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, they were absolutely wonderful. Armando, unmute yourself, please.
Done.
Thank you. So the Isidore software sounds terrific, but what we would like to know is how does it free you to explore and create? What is it about this software that is propelling you into the future?
It is something very specific. If you think about the digital is a form that is a form in between the forms. Everything can be digitized. Sound can become zeros and ones, image, light, a gesture. When you move your mouse or on the finger on the trackpad, you actually have a movement capture system that translates into zeros and ones. As digital artists or artists that want to use the digital as a way to enhance and say something of you, you have the possibility to digitize everything. So video, audio, text, and gesture can become digitized and then can be transformed into something else. I mean, what I like in the video that we saw is that Deirdre sees movement in everything, even in a still image, as a potential, as a diagonal, as something that floats and comes back and plays with gravity and movement. Okay, so imagine bringing this to all the media, not just the image, but the sound. Imagine that my voice or my temperature or my cardiac rhythm becomes music, becomes image, becomes text. Just I could give lots of examples and show examples of people that have taken their poetic idea through the digital to something they couldn't do without. So it's empowering people again through interactivity, which means yes, you can. So we come back to a political statement in the sense that we can have an impact and have a certain degree of authorship in a material that is not ours. We can communicate with another artwork. I don't know if you have time, but I could show you very specific examples.
We're out of time.
It started.
But
It
I will
started
say,
in
Armando, that maybe we'll have you back and you can go into greater detail about this when we are able to
with
have
pleasure.
you at the club. But yes, that's very fascinating. Anne Marie, you there? Hey, okay. So yes, you were correct, and it was fascinating to listen to you about at the beginning of each century, the upheaval and the birth of new. So as we are going through this century, who do you see are the movers and shakers who are going to transform besides yourself? Because it sounds like you're one of them. Right? But
well, I'll name a couple of people, but what's so fascinating with the technology is I don't think we can go forward without the technology.
Mhm.
I would be sad if we lose the human experience, but I think with the Isidore, I think by simulate, it'll be like, it's like real. Come and see this. It's like live. It's like real. You know, we're going to have to kind of go through a period of time of losing that human interaction, which Bill Irwin did during this period. He did a brilliant skit. I don't know if you saw it about that. In terms of dance, let me just stick with my field. One person I can say for sure is Sidi Larbi Chakoy. Do you know who he is? Sidi Larbi, he's Belgian, runs the ballet in Antwerp. He choreographed Jagged Little Pill. He's a choreographer that comes from the discipline, and I'm going to just lump them all together. When I say Tanz theater, it's the derivation of Kurt Yost and German Expressionism and Birgit, Ballet des Suédois, Birgit Kohlberg. And so when you have Expressionism, I just lump it all together, Tanz theater people. So he's a derivation of that, but he can choreograph in every single medium. And he did a piece called Sutra at the White Light Lincoln Center Festival at Jazz at Lincoln Center with monks. It was absolutely brilliant, poetic. It went to another dimension. Now he's younger and he can choreograph. Brilliant Broadway show, which did the formula that nobody is doing on Broadway, all the choreographers, which I won't get into, into that, but very, 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 very inventive, where he was able to go to the next dimension. So I think in dance, it's somebody who probably has to be a little bit eclectic to work in the different mediums and move into the realm of feeling sort of the spiritual dimension on one hand. Preljoukaj, who again is of the same discipline, older generation, but did a ballet called The Annunciation, which split reality. For the first time, you saw somebody, a human and an angel, and the idea was to kiss, the dream. And he actually succeeded in making you feel alter reality simultaneously. So I'm not quite sure the next platform is Cirque du Soleil, which also is what I do. The next platform has to go into the human experience and how human relates to other people. And again, like what Deirdre was saying with nature, and how to capture the energy and perhaps through video, the feeling in that medium. The feeling, how do we convey feeling, not just what you're seeing or the technology or the way the shot looks, so bringing that to another. Crystal Pite is another one that I think is a mover. I'm listing all these non-Americans. I apologize.
It's okay. Wherever it comes from, it doesn't have to come from here. We'll just.
Can I make a short comment to what Anne-Marie said? Something that Anne-Marie said. Anne-Marie, you're right in saying that there is a fear of substitution of live about technology, but in fact, if you look at the history of the human communication, no technological mean has really replaced another. Think about photography. Photography didn't replace painting. Cinema didn't replace theater. Telephone didn't replace personal communication and flesh interaction. So systems of communication go on top of one another and don't substitute. So there is no fear to be taken there.
It's not so much that. I'm saying if you're isolated in your own room having an experience by yourself, it's different if you're in a theater having that energetic exchange with the communicators, the artists, and themselves. So that's more what I was speaking about. I sort of agree with you on that subject, but I have no fear in that, because if we could astral project one day, we could dematerialize and materialize. So if you can sense on another plane, you can connect globally with people as you're streaming the same thing.
Excellent. Joanna, unmute, please.
Yes.
Okay, so you also had a really fascinating story, but the one thing that I was thinking of as you were talking is, because you spend a lot of time communicating with government to get what you need and impress upon them the importance of what you're doing. So the future of dance, what do you think a government's role should be in that?
Wow, the government's role. I would say, I did mention the government, but it's really much more important on a community level, because most of the permission that we had to get to do the work that we did was going to the local elders and the religious leaders and the mothers and fathers and things like that. That's really where the movers and shakers, that's where our playing field really is. That's
really more like grassroots up.
Absolutely grassroots. I think change comes from grassroots up rather than top down. And, I just wanted to mention, I studied ballet. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then instead I ended up in theater. But I studied ballet since little. And then my parents said, no, that wasn't going to happen. So I went to architecture school and then to art school. And here I am in theater. So it's all really related. But yes, the grassroots, it's all from the bottom up. It's so important, which is why it's important that we have actual face-to-face communication, because many places on a grassroots level, they don't have access to this layers of interactivity digitally yet.
Yeah. Well, This was a wonderful program. Deirdre, thank you so much for pulling this all together for us.
I wish everybody had an hour and a half to speak,
know.
because they're all so interesting.
It's all fascinating.
Not to mention seeing their work, you know.
I know, absolutely. So Anne Marie, Armando, Joanna, thank you so much for being part of this. You've all made terrific contributions to this and are moving ahead and thinking about what dance and, you know, in the largest sense, the arts as a way to communicate and connect with everybody where this is going in the future. Thanks to Dawn, my co-chair, for her help on this also. And thank you so much to the viewers. Thank you for attending this. And just a reminder once again that this was recorded and it will be available on the National Arts Club YouTube channel by, I guess, sometime tomorrow afternoon if you would like to see it again or share it with friends. So again, thanks to all of you. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deirdre. Thank you.
Really, it was terrific.
See you all soon. Again, in flesh.
Again, in the flesh. So
Hopefully.
yes, it will happen. You know it will. So everybody have a lovely evening and good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.